how's it? You ready? You're gonna be special guest this week, aren't you? Yeah, you are. Go on, go. What's going on, everybody? It is the one and only Q from Retro Q Gaming, back from parts unknown, coming at you from a mysterious, undisclosed location, because, well, that's what we do these days in the pandemic. Isn't that how it rolls? But yes, here we are with our 55th episode of our Quack experimental podcast. Very, 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 very strange stuff to talk about this week. It's going to be good. It's going to be different. But anyway, we'll get right into the whole thing. First off, we're going to start with a new lawsuit that's been hit. Now, who's been hit by this lawsuit, you might be wondering? Well, this time it's Microsoft, and it is a class action lawsuit in the US, following in the same vein as what you have that Nintendo got hit by with the whole stick drift thing. Now, this one alleges that because of Xbox One controllers and how they're designed, that they will inevitably, or almost inevitably, be hit by stick drift in their lifespan. Now, you might remember this one on the Nintendo Switch. This happened as well because they basically all use the similar enough style design when it comes to the sticks in them. And of course, it's alleged that Microsoft and Nintendo as well knew about all of this. These are two separate lawsuits, by the way, one for Microsoft, one for Nintendo. We're mainly talking about the Microsoft one here, but it's alleged that Microsoft knew this would happen and released the product anyway without any intent to fix it. Now, we don't know what's going to happen just yet. This is basically only brand new and only come to light. And it's gone all the way back from several years. And I mean, hell, when you think about it, as soon as 2013, when the Xbox One launched, sticks were drifting after people were using them and whatnot. I know myself in particular, at least anyway, including Xbox 360, I had one stick that drifted because I severely used that controller. I believe I still have it. And like when you hold it and just shake it, the stick is loose. It just bounces around. These are all, it's only to do with official first-party controllers, of course, which all of the ones that I'm using are. And you might remember a year, or I want to say 2017, when the Xbox One X launched. But you might remember that I had what do they call them? Xbox One Elite controller, and I had it for 2 years at that point, and the stick started to drift. The left stick started to drift to the left, and I did manage to get it sorted out, covered for free under warranty. Not the original warranty that is provided with the controller, that is 1 year here in Ireland, but I managed to scheme it in a way that it was taken care of under my Xbox One X, my original first Xbox One X, before it ironically died. And it was covered under the warranty for that. But this alleges as well, because of it's a significant cost to repair in the US, because they will repair these and they only come with up to a 90-day warranty, depending on where you live in the States. So when you pay $120, $150, whatever it is, for one of these controllers, at least if you get an Elite one, then you have to pay a significant amount to get it fixed a short time later. So we'll see how this goes. Unfortunately, I think this is going to be thrown out. We could be wrong. I believe the Nintendo one is progressing. I can't remember. It's been a while. But it would be good to see it. It would be good to see it, because that would what's the word I'm looking for? It would give an initiative to these companies to develop proper stick technology. We've had PS1, PS2, PS3, OG Xbox 180 sticks, all this other stuff. We've had so many of them that haven't gone bad like these. And now suddenly, because they're all using whatever type of new graphite pad system they're using that's under the sticks, this is what eventually happens and inevitably happens. So it would be nice to see if these companies were held responsible for this and held properly accountable for this, and were forced to develop a new way that prevented all of this. Who knows? We might even have to develop some type of technology and some type of stick that proves better. Not only durable and longer lasting and whatnot, but more accurate and better. And accuracy is something that is really, really needed on a console, especially when it comes to analog sticks. But speaking of accuracy, we'll move on to something that may or may not have historical accuracy, and that is Rudders and Arms. Now, Rudders and Arms, you might remember, because it's been forever, is a World War II game series. Now, it hasn't truly had a proper game in about 12 years since 2008, but we don't include all those mobile games and stuff in the meantime. But it seems that recently, Gearbox not only talked about how they were looking for ways to reinvigorate the franchise and come back with a new game and how to introduce it and whatnot. We may have a reason why they made those comments and why something might be happening in the meantime. So Gearbox have announced a TV show partnership. Not so much a partnership, but TV show plans. Because what they're doing is they have announced that there's going to be at least one season of a Rudders and Arms TV show. And it's mainly going to focus and centralize around what's called no, I shouldn't call it Operation Tiger. Exercise Tiger. Exercise Tiger, which was a D-Day rehearsal, if you will, because they had a general idea of how, I won't say how it was going to go, but they had a general idea of what they were coming up against. But apparently, Exercise Tiger, which was the D-Day rehearsal, went extremely wrong, and there was many, many problems and all too. Now, when you think about it, production has not yet started. Okay, so they're looking for directors, they're looking for cast, which will obviously be much, much further down the line. Hell, they're even looking for a network to pick it up at the moment. They've attached a couple of names on there too as producers and stuff, but they need a network, they need writers, they need directors, etc., and then cast, obviously. Now, when you think of the turnaround time on, let's call it, creating a whole Rudders and Arms TV show, an entire season from scratch, probably takes 2-3 years. Game development could take roughly about the same time, no? So why not bring Rudders and Arms to a TV show, possibly to a very wide audience, and at the same time bring, maybe it's not a tie-in game, but bring out a game that capitalizes on the name. If you have 50 million people tuning in every week to watch Rudders and Arms, Exercise Tiger, or Operation Tiger, or whatever you want to call it, on, I don't know, HBO every week, those people are going to know it. Hell, let's just, for argument's sake, let's say they make the mistake and put it on Netflix, and let them produce and whatever it. Remember what happened to The Witcher and The Witcher sales after it was on Netflix? Yeah. So that's why you might want to tie in a game with this at the same time. People will think, oh, I have a PlayStation 4, I have a PlayStation 5, I have an Xbox One, although no one has an Xbox One, I have a Xbox, maybe I can buy Rudders and Arms, this TV show is great, maybe I can buy this game, maybe it'll be great. This is why they hire me, guys, this is why they should hire me, I should say. But yeah, we'll see. Now, before we move into this next segment, I have to explain this one because we have to do this little particular segment just a little bit differently because there are many, many shenanigans going on around here. So, for the entirety of this segment, let's look at something that everyone can love. This little dog, this little pupper, this little doggo, whatever your preferred name, word, acronym, whatever it is for it. He is a mischievous little guy. Sometimes he's even a little bit of a bad guy. Sometimes he's a little bit of a naughty guy. But hey, it is what it is. Now, we're going to move on and we're going to talk about a particular game, you may or may not have heard of it, which has had significant controversy this week. Now, it's not that particular one you're thinking of it, because that would just be silly if I was to ever talk about that and there was any issues. No, this one is going, if you've never heard of it anyway at least, this game is called The First of Many, Part 2. And I would completely understand if you've never heard of this, possibly not even popular game at all. It's from a small studio you may or may not have ever heard of, called Mischievous Canine. Now, currently, there are many things floating around out there. What is to be believed, what is to not be believed. You won't see any of this on mainstream media sites because, well, it's a very, very small, obscure game and small, obscure studio. But recently, there were huge, significant amounts of plot points, gameplay, cutscenes, etc. And of course, big story, which was kept hidden and all too. Much of this has been leaked all over the place. There are hours upon hours and very, very intricately detailed plot points and all out there too. And it seems that this was all brought about by a particular member of disgruntled staff who was potentially screwed over when it came to pay. Now, it seems like other studios, like for example, most notably Gearbox, which we talked about before, Mischievous Canine actually pay less than standard wages. But to offset this, what they do is offer huge performance bonuses based on the sales of the games. And these performance bonuses and all come as a one lump sum payout 6 months after release, or not at all. It's one or the other. Now, if you've been keeping up with the development timeline and all, if you've even heard of the game, remember it's called The First of Many, Part 2. Unfortunately, this game had suffered many delays, including one of which was going to be an indefinite delay due to the pandemic. And because of all of this, some of these people and some of these employees and the team members and whatnot in there as well were not sure when they'd ever get these bonuses. After all, if you're told a game comes out on the 1st of the 1st, 2021, you know you're going to get your bonus 6 months later. And you're going to get that on the 1st of July. Because you know that's 6 months later. But if a game is complete and it has no release date, you don't know when that release date will even start and then when the 6 months will count down from. Now, of course, many people and many members of the dev team and all the writers, the artists and all as well, many of these people had made plans well in advance based on release dates that they had. They had put down payments on homes, or they planned moves, they had weddings planned out, or some people naturally, because of the effect of everything going on, they just wanted to maybe have the money as a cushion to sit at home, write out and survive the coronavirus. Now, because of all of this, a member of the team, which is the one who turned out to have leaked all of this, had the absolute gall, if you will, there's heavy sarcasm there, to ask for an advance of the bonus or even just a portion of the bonus because of the situation and the fact that, hey, we don't even know when this 6 months is going to be up, let alone when the release date is going to be. And of course, this was denied by the studio, and apparently they were also threatened to be fired, which would completely 100% forego any bonus. So naturally, they were fairly unhappy. Now, one of the main reasons that the studio did this, that they denied all of this, was when you think about it, if one person asks this and they grant it, everyone else is going to ask this and expect it as well. Otherwise, it'd be like, oh, why did you give that person? Why did you give that person? Why did you give that person but not me? And apparently, high-up executives, including the studio creative director, whose name is O'Neill Cookman, and other high-profile executive-level people, were granted those advance bonuses, but the rank and file were not. Naturally, this person got pissed off, as you could completely understand, and then this happened, where they leaked significant amount of plot points, cutscenes, gameplay, and major story spoilers, which here, what's the proper term? Heretofore, were basically hidden and kept a secret. Now, I've been keeping away from all of these spoilers, but it does kind of make sense now that you look back and see why other voice actors and people who were involved with the project externally were trying to distance themselves for the last couple of months. Now, in response to this and in a complete effort to damage control the whole thing, this is when they came out and announced an actual release date for the game. Now, I'm not going to mention what the release date of the game is here, because when you think about it, well, that would mean I'm talking about a specific game that people may misinterpret for the one I'm actually talking about, which, remember, is The First of Many, Part 2. No other game. But needless to say, it is fairly soon. Or at least fairly soon after its initial projected release date. Or its previous one. Now, on top of all of this, naturally many people have been talking about this because, well, industry problems are never a good thing. And of course, big spoilers and all of, even if they are relatively small and obscure games like this, well, you know, no one's happy about that if they're interested in it. But it turns out that Mischievous Canine, the very small obscure studio that's behind all of this, and their parent company have been going out of their way to suppress this. Videos being deleted, copyright strikes, DMCA claims, and yet, of course, the mainstream gaming media isn't talking about it at all. In fact, they're doing the complete opposite, and they're siding with these companies, saying everything's fine, nothing is wrong, there's no problems here, any of that stuff. And people wonder why we hate the gaming media, the gaming journalists. But it makes perfect sense, and we will talk exactly why mainstream media and, quote, games journalists, unquote, would do exactly this. Let's say I own a company that makes a video games console. And this console has sold 199 million units, because naturally if I did design a console, it would sell 199 million units, because it would easily go on to be the best-selling games console of all time. And of course, I would own several first-party in-house production studios as well, which would make extremely high-quality games, which would sell dozens and dozens and dozens of million games a piece. They would be critically acclaimed, with nothing receiving less than a 99% gaming score. And of course, these games journalists and whatnot would expect review copies and would expect coverage and all too, which I would probably provide to them. Now, if one of these companies slighted me in any way, shape or form, I could cut them off, and they would have no support from me or any of my studios. So they wouldn't be getting any coverage, any reason to make these articles that would give them their thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of clicks, and therefore ad impressions. So that gives them a very, very good reason and highly incentivizes their absolute corporate bootlicking. But anyway, we'll see if and when it ever does launch, if the first of many, part 2, from Mischievous K9 is any good. Oh, feels good to be back. Feels good to be back. And unfortunately, that feeling good to be back is just going to complete nosedive off a cliff, because we are going to talk about the worst video game platform ever created, and potentially the worst games console ever created. Because of hardware requirements and whatnot too, we can still kind of swing it as a console. No, I'm not talking about the Wii U. No, I'm not talking about the Xbox One, which had a 50-50 tie, but we are talking about Google Stadia. And surprisingly enough, mind-bogglingly enough even, Google Stadia is getting new games. And not just new games, they're getting new high-profile games. And, well, new is a stretch. We'll go with relatively new, because it's more new than what the Switch gets, because that's just, decades old ports and 2 generations ago games. But EA, that's right, EA has announced that they are partnering with Google Stadia to bring some of their games to Google Stadia, which is surprising because they were really having a bad time trying to convince anyone to put their games on Google Stadia. Now, so far, all they've announced is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which kind of makes sense. It's tied in with Disney and Star Wars, one of the biggest franchises and all. FIFA, pretty much the biggest game every single year. And Madden. Again, I'm not sure how Madden goes, but I'm sure it's one of the fairly big ones too. Now, they've also said that more games will come and more games will release in 2021 and potentially beyond. Now, this will do absolutely nothing to increase Google Stadia's marketability. The same 7 people using it now are going to be the same only 7 people that care about it ever in the future, with or without these games. But I will say, as a great little knock-on effect, it does have the Nintendo's super salty, which is amazing to me, at least anyway, because it really shows that Google Stadia is getting EA support and not the Switch. It's getting modern EA games, not just legacy crappy old indie games and crappy old last generation FIFA. Probably because the Switch can't run them. But hey, if they want to waste their time and money, but I'm sure Google paid them a lot of money enough money to make it worthwhile to put the games on here. Hey, it's business, right? But speaking of business, we have some stuff that is good to talk about. Now, you might remember last week that I theorized based on rumors, leaks, whatever it is, the stuff going around, the word on the street, that we were potentially looking about very, very soon with a release date for 10th generation Intel desktop processors. And lo and behold, that was finally announced on April 30th. Just like that. Now, they have gone over and released some of the more important ones as well. Naturally, there's i3s, there's i5s and whatnot, i7s and i9s, of course. Now, there are many, many different chips out there. I am only going to go into detail about 2 of these chips, because they will be the 2 more important ones and the 2 most common ones. Now, None of them are going to be i3s. None of them are going to be i5s. None of them are going to be non-lettered models. None of them are going to be F series, and none of them are going to be KF series. Today, we are going to look at the details of the 10th generation Intel Core i7 10700K and the i9 10900K, because these are the two most common ones that are going to be done. So, when it comes to these processors at the moment as well, it is important to note for some people out there that they are 14 nanometer plus exclamation ampersand question mark apostrophe colon semicolon bracket blah 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 14 nanometer process. So yes, they are still 14 nanometers. Now, this is relatively arguably important, but you can take that as you wish. However, let's look at the proper specs for all of this. So the i7 10700K, it has a base clock speed of up to 3.8 gigahertz. It has the turbo boost technology, of course, which can potentially bring it up to 5, and it has the new turbo boost max technology 3.0, which could potentially bring it up to 5.1. Now, this i7 10700K does not have the new Intel terminal velocity boost technology that they're kind of hyping up. That's only for the i9s. But it also has the all-core turbo frequency of up to 4.7 gigahertz. Very impressively enough, it is an 8-core 16-thread chip, which is very, very good. The 9 series chips and pretty much everything from like the 6 series and up were very, very bad in that regard when they stopped doing proper cores and all too. I mean, a great example is my CPU. My CPU is probably like 5 or 6 years old at this point. It's an i7 5960X, which is, like I said, maybe 5-6 years old, and it is an 8-core 16-thread chip, which had not been seen pretty much since then until now. So back to the i7 10700K. It is 8-core 16-thread. It does have a huge TDP, which is 125 watts. That's a thermal design power. Basically, it's how much power it can draw up to. Anyway. But 125. Pretty big. Of course, it is a 10700K, so it is a K model chip. It is unlocked and can be overclocked, which is important. It has PCIe 3.0 lanes up to 40. Very, very curious that they didn't put in any 4.0 support, which is very questionable in its viability in some ways as well, compared to current AMD, let alone future AMD. Because when you think about it, current AMD has PCIe 4.0 support, which is very, very fast. And it turns out that obviously these Intel chips don't have the PCIe 4.0 support, and the current chipsets that support this as well also don't have PCIe 4.0 support. Anyway, let's look at some memory support here. Dual channel, or 2-channel is the same thing really, DDR4 2933 megahertz. And for some reason, it still has Intel UHD graphics 630. It does support Intel Optane memory, and the recommended consumer pricing is $374 based on the purchase of 1,000 units. That's how much of this goes, because naturally when they buy from Intel and whatnot, the more you buy, the cheaper you get them for. And they price this as, well, listen, if you buy 1,000 chips from us, we can give you a price that will let you make a decent amount of profit if you sell to your consumer at $374. So expect it to be somewhere between $374 to maybe $400, depending on where you buy it from. Now we'll look at the i9 10900K. This is the more impressive chip, if you ask me. Now, well, obviously it is the more impressive one, but it's also more interesting in many ways. So, base clock speeds up to 3.7 gigahertz. Remember, that is 100 megahertz slower than the 10700K, but there's a very, very important thing in the meantime. So using the turbo boost technology, it can go up to 5.1 gigahertz, which has a bigger ceiling, if you will, than the i7. It has the turbo boost max technology. It can go up to 5.2, which is a slightly higher ceiling than the i7 as well. It does have the thermal velocity boost clock as well, which can go up to 5.3 gigahertz in single core and up to 4.9 gigahertz in multi-core. Of course, the i7 does not support this at all, so that is a big boosted feature on there too. It does have the all-core turbo frequency as well of up to 4.8 gigahertz, which is again a higher ceiling than the i7. But here is where this comes even more impressive. This is a 10-core 20-thread chip. Now, I realize there are bigger ones out there as well, compared to the likes of AMD and all as well. They have stuff like 16-core, 32 threads, 32-core, 16 threads. Hell, I think even one of their thread rippers is a 64-core, 128 thread. So, yes, we're not looking at that. We're looking at this as the comparison from the Intel ones. So, not only does it have 100 megahertz slower clock speeds, base slower clock speeds, than the i7, it does have more cores, it does have more threads, and it has higher boost in multiple different scenarios and multiple different ways than the i7. Of course, it is a 10900K, so it is a K model chip, therefore it is unlocked and easily overclockable, and it has the same TDP of 125 watts as the i7, which is very, very curious in that way. It still has up to 40 PCIe 3.0 lanes. It does not, so the whole family of chips and chipsets does not support 4.0. The memory support is still the same. It is 2-channel DDR4 2933 MHz, and it has the same Intel UHD graphics of a 630 model. The price on this, it also supports Intel Optane memory, obviously. But the most important thing as well on this one is probably the pricing. Again, the recommended consumer pricing based on the retailer buying 1,000 units will be $488. So somewhere between $488 and maybe $500 or so. Now, what's important about all of this? It is still 14nm technology. Even if it is multiple different revisions and plus. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about the whole difference between and the importance between 14nm, 10nm, 7nm, but the fact is, real world benchmarks are what matters. Now, Intel have put out benchmarks in regards to these 10th generation chips. From what they show, the i9 10900K and the i7 10700K completely decimate all other available market chips in gaming performance. Now, when I say decimate, there is a big difference. We're not talking an extra 5 frames per second here. We're talking a 25-30% increase. So that is a significant one as well. They used two important ones as comparisons. They used the previous king of gaming CPUs, which was an i9 9900K, and they used an AMD Ryzen 3900X, and there were significant performance gains in the i7 10700 over both of those chips, let alone the i9 10900K, which completely destroyed them. Now, of course, here is the problem. You're looking at, naturally, bigger price. You do have to pay the cost to be the boss. You do get the gaming performance and all out of it too. And naturally, these CPUs will be complete workhorses outside of gaming as well. So you're still getting some good stuff there. However, it is missing some key current/future features. That PCIe 3.0, that could be a deal breaker for a lot of people. Now, I currently don't know where I'm going to sit on this just yet. I will say one thing. Even though I did talk about these benchmarks, and Intel provided these benchmarks, as always, I will always tell you, wait for independent third-party benchmarks to validate and prove all of this. The ones I'm going off and the ones I quoted a few minutes ago were based on Intel-provided benchmarks. Always wait on third-party, actual, real-world, true benchmarks before any of this, or before you take it all as gospel. Now, I will say, small percentage of variation and whatnot, I do expect the overall to be the same. It's very, very hard to make a CPU. Let's just say the i9 9900K. it's very difficult to make a CPU look significantly better than that when it's not really the case. But again, verify all of this. However, I will say as well that based on all of this, I am still leaning slightly more towards an AMD CPU in my next build. Maybe it's a 3900X. Maybe in my next build. We'll have to see. I do want to wait a little bit and see, can I sacrifice that little bit of overhead and whatnot in CPU and gaming and whatnot in order to get PCIe 4.0 support? Some other stuff in there too. We have to wait and see. Between this and Nvidia's new conference on May 14th that could potentially talk about their new consumer level GPUs, the next couple of weeks are going to be very, very interesting for someone like me. And potentially someone like you if you're curious about upgrading or buying a new part as well. But sticking with PC hardware and all at the moment, we're going to talk about USB 4. That's right, we're still here in the USB 3.1 and 3.2 and whatnot. But, well, we're already talking about USB 4. Now, typically, USB 4 technically exists. As far as I know, no consumer level product has it. But the standard is created and the technology and research around it is still ongoing. Now, normally, with USB 4, it has 50 gigabit per second each way. So 50 gigabit per second up and 50 gigabit per second down at the same time. Compare this to something along the likes of DisplayPort 2.0, which naturally only needs to go one way and is 77.37 gigabits per second one way. So that's almost twice as fast. For all intents and purposes, it is twice as fast. We'll just go with that. But because with the increase of USB-C and USB 3.0 and whatnot being used for things like video output and all as well, some changes had to be made, especially going forward if they wanted to kind of future-proof USB 4. So you might remember VESA, the standards company. They've remapped and re-engineered and rejigged a bunch of the pins inside of USB 4 to allow the full 77.37 gigabits per second downstream. Now, at the same time, they haven't talked about how the upstream can go as well. Maybe it can only switch to a video output mode and do that at the one particular time. But this is all thanks to what they're calling DisplayPort Alt Mode 2.0. So all of the specs and all of the requirements and features and all of DisplayPort 2.0 are coming to USB 4 because of DisplayPort Alt Mode 2.0. And that is including 8K, which is 7,680 by 4,320. That's a huge resolution, 4 times that of 4K. Oh, but Q, 8 is twice 4. It doesn't work that way. It's a square. Your 4K is one corner, 1 quarter, 2, 3, and 4. It's the same way 4K is 4 times 1080p. But anyway, it can support 8K video at 60 Hertz with HDMR. I was going to say HDMR. With HDR, completely uncompressed. Or it can even support 16K, which is 4 times 8K. A lot of numbers here, and is a resolution. Wait a minute. I think I got my numbers wrong. I may have. But it can even support 8K, which is, according to this, 12,000... No, hang on. Okay, now I see where I made a mistake. It's okay, guys, I'm a professional. Let me edit it on the fly here. So the 16K, which is a resolution of 15,360 by 8,460 at 60 Hertz with HDR. However, if it does want to support the 16K 60 Hz HDR output, it does so with compression. Now, we'll have to wait and see when this takes effect, what we'll start using it, because it seems like it's just going to be one of those things. One of those things they create because they can. Now, there'll be 1, maybe 2 products that will use it, but I do think USB 4 will be great for some things. It will be great for transfer speeds and whatnot too. But when it comes to video output and all that, it's not going to be used as proper video output. USB-C is not done the same way. Even the Apple stuff has not taken off in the same way. USB 4.0 will not take off in the same way when it comes to primary use as video output. It'll be great to support it, but, I mean, who's going to use it? Who's going to care? But speaking of things that you should care about, we have Nintendo. And Nintendo are currently announcing that they are shutting down what they call limited Wii U and 3DS eShops. Now, limited eShops are, it's not in a specific country or anything like that. There are countries that have something that is called a limited eShop. Not limited as in, you know, select amounts and whatnot too. But these limited eShops only offer very basic functionality in the likes of game code redemption or patches for games and whatnot too. Now this is pretty much all in Latin American countries and Caribbean countries on July 31st, 2020. Now, the following regions are going to be affected by all of this. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of some of these anyway, but hey, we'll read out the whole thing. Feel free to correct me or anything like that. So we've got Anguilla, Antigua, Barbuda, Argentina, Aruba, Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, Bermuda, Bolivia, the British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, French Guiana, Grenada, Guadalupe, Guatemala, Guyana, Haiti, Honduras, Jamaica, Martinique, Montserrat, the Netherlands, Antilles, whatever it is, Nicaragua, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent / Grenadines, Suriname, Trinidad and Tobago, Turks and Caicos Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands, Uruguay, and Venezuela. Now, of course, that was a fully comprehensive list there. So this also, not only when they're shutting down this, obviously you won't be able to redeem game codes and all, and get patches for your games and updates and stuff too. But this is why it becomes important, because this also includes the ability to re-download games you have already purchased and maybe deleted or uninstalled or whatever in the meantime, or maybe you got a new system and they didn't transfer over, or you didn't re-download them or whatever it is. Now, currently, this is something they've done before. You might remember on the Wii. You could transfer it over to the Wii U. You could no longer go onto the Wii store on a Wii and download all the stuff, even if it was on your account. You could no longer go onto a Wii U and go into Wii mode and re-download all that stuff as well. So basically all that stuff is lost in time, like pre-cum in a jacuzzi. But despite all of this, it is now happening in select countries to the 3DS and Wii U. Now, people probably never expected it to happen to the 3DS. The Wii U, fair enough. But with how popular and how well the 3DS sold, people probably didn't expect it. Now, it's only an inevitability and an eventuality where this will happen in non-limited countries. And this will happen to the Switch down the line. Now, it may not happen today, may not happen tomorrow, may not happen when the Switch U comes out, which is going to be the Wii 3 or the Wii U 2, whatever way you want to look at it. But eventually, down the line, when the following console comes out, what's going to happen to all of your Switch digital downloads? How many Switch games require additional downloads, even when bought physically? Let alone if you only have a digital version. You're pretty much going to be fucked then, aren't you? So this is why digital distribution sucks balls. Giving up the ability to play, re-download your games again is on someone else's time and someone else's call. You paid your hard-earned money for this. Are they going to refund you that money? You fucking damn well sure they're not gonna. But we can hit up a topic that is the complete opposite and antithesis of Nintendo, because we are talking next gen. We're talking next gen games, something that Nintendo will probably never be ever again. and they haven't been for, well, decades at this point. But we have next-gen games, and they are revealed on Thursday, May 7th at 4 p.m. BST. Now, Xbox is going to be running a digital event, and it's going to be showcasing Xbox Series X games, and they're going to be showing them off in video form, gameplay as well, as potentially some announcements. Now, strangely enough, when it comes to these games and whatnot too, Ubisoft, a notable grubby, greedy company, has opted in for Assassin's Creed Valhalla for the Smart Delivery Xbox Series X free upgrade, just like CD Projekt Red did with Cyberpunk 2077. I kind of expected it from, when you think about it, you would expect it from CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk 2077, but you wouldn't expect it from Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed because they're greedy cunts. But anyway, you might be wondering, Q, you're calling it the Xbox Series X. Yes, I'm using it at this point. I'm using the real name because with what they're doing and all, I actually respect them enough to use the proper name because they're showing everything, showing so much, being so transparent, unlike Sony, which, well, we haven't even seen the console yet, but that's beside the point here. Now, at the moment, what this has been tipped to do, according to Aaron Greenberg, is this upcoming stream on the 7th, or upcoming video, or whatever it is going to be released on the 7th, is only going to be showcasing third-party games. So I'm sure you'll see, maybe, I don't know, Watchdog Legion in there. You'll see maybe Xbox Series X ports of stuff like The Division 2, or maybe you'll see The Division 3, or Rainbow Six, or something like that. And who knows? But of course, it's not going to strictly be Ubisoft. There will be other companies there as well. We might have something from Square Enix. We might have something from EA. I'm sure they'll show off next-gen FIFA, next-gen Madden, all this stuff as well. Who knows? I might actually stream this. Remember, May 7th, 4 p.m. BST. You'll probably see me streaming here because, well, why not? Now, of course, we're going to end it out with the best segment every week, and, of course, the reason why everyone is here. Q, what's the deal? What's going on? What's up? What is going down? What's the 411? What are you playing? Well, I have a lot to talk about this week in what I have been playing, and most of it is going to be taken up by one specific thing, because this first little part we're going to talk about involves this bad boy. That's right, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now I'm going to put this down, because it is a big box. But Final Fantasy VII Remake, yes, we are going to talk about this first. No spoilers, so anyone can feel free to watch this and not be spoiled on it too. It is what it is, and we're going to have no spoilers on there. So, Final Fantasy VII. I finished it on Monday. I received it the previous Monday, so it took me about a week to do. As I predicted, it took me 36 hours and 6 minutes to do so. Because I'm a beast, I did it quicker than everybody else. But hey, it's to be expected when it comes to me and JRPGs, am I right? Or just games in general. Now, I want to talk about my thoughts of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Overall, I'm very happy with it. There are some, we'll call them small design issues that I was not happy with and that detracted from the experience. There are some significant problems from a hardware standpoint and significant problems from a game standpoint. But overall, I was very happy with a lot of it in large part. Now, let's break it down. So, first off, I'm just going to get it out of the way and talk about it straight out. Hardware limitations of this game are huge. It is literally impossible to avoid these hardware limitations. Everywhere you go, 99% of the time, you are slapped in the face by hardware limitations. I'm not even talking about 30 frames per second. Everywhere you go, there's just not enough texture memory. It is a PS4 timed exclusive, so 4.5 gigabytes of video memory is not enough. You may be wondering, Q, the PS4 has 8 gigabytes. Yeah, and 3.5 of which is dedicated to the operating system, so it leaves 4.5 available for the games. So, 4.5 is just not enough for this game. You are greeted by just textures that do not exist. The game is 100 gigabytes. And the game console does not have the... There's no use of having all these textures if your hardware cannot use them. Now, they have still pulled off some wizardry where you can see everything in the distance that looks decent. But if you look at anything for a split second, and not just in your periphery outside everywhere, you will see that literally everything in the game, outside of the main characters, just falls apart. Huge hardware limitations. And it's so disappointing. And myself, enough, at first, before we got our hands on the game, we were dead set that it's like, okay, you know, sure, there's probably some of these limitations. We can overlook it enough because it's Final Fantasy VII Remake. However, they were so severe, 99% of the time, that it did finally, eventually detract from the experience. But anyway, moving on, we'll get back to the game. Now, they've expanded on Midgar significantly. Just recently, I've been playing Final Fantasy VII OG, talk about a little bit more about that later, but they stretched out Midgar from 5 to 6 hours, all the way to, in my case, 36 hours. Some people 40, 45, some 50. Big stretch. But much of it feels okay. Much of it doesn't feel forced. Much of it doesn't feel drawn out and dragged out just for the sake of it. One or two exceptions. Chapter 4, I believe it is. That one really got me. One of my friends didn't care. He liked that. He thought it fit well. But me, no. That particular chapter, not going to say which one it is. But I believe it's chapter 4. I mean, I'm not going to tell you the details of it. But that one felt a bit tacked on to me. And, again, no details. But right at the end, the entire last chapter and the latter half of the second last chapter have been expanded to the point of ridiculousness. The game should have ended a chapter and a half early. You should have taken the one or two key points from the second half of the last chapter, as well as the one or two key points from the final chapter, and just ended it in the second, done it properly and ended it in the second last chapter. Now, there was significant changes to the story. Not going to say what they are, of course, because no spoilers. Not happy with them at all. It seems like the vast majority is not happy with them, and I completely understand it. To the point where, remember when I said the last chapter and the second half of the second last chapter? Yeah, that completely changed my mind on the game. I actively hated that last part. Those last bits. Actively hated it completely. Completely turned me off the game for a while. To the point where it was so dragged out at that point, as well as the quality of what was going on and all at the same time. It really just made me think, oh my god, I can't fucking wait for this to get over and just never play it again in any time within the next 6 months, year, 2 years, whatever it is. That really killed it for me. Other than that, there's only a couple of small other things as well that were small design choices that really kind of hampered it a little bit. Now, those ones were in some ways regular boss fights. Some of them were just, they had so much HP, and even when you took advantage of their one particular weakness or the gimmick of that boss fight, they just really took forever. Some of the gimmicks were kind of broken and just so hard to, I wouldn't say so hard to do, but they were just so unwieldy. But hey, I guess you can say that's what it is. And there's a couple of small enemy designs that were just so poor. Example, flying enemy who never stops moving, who is weak to wind. The wind spell in this game, arrow and all that as well, they're a plume straight up. So you cast it, a couple of seconds later the spell goes off, and then a couple of seconds later the plume goes up. Of course, these enemies are pretty much immune to physical attacks or the next best thing to immune to it, and yeah, they constantly move, never stop. It's stuff like that that really gets it and really takes away. Overall, compared to how I was feeling about the game initially, between the last chapter and a half, the battle niggles and stuff like that, there wasn't a huge amount of the battle stuff. I will say that, at least anyway. There wasn't a huge amount of the unwieldy bosses and all too. So the end chapter and a half really took it away from me, and took it from a 9.9 game down to like an 8, or hell, just for a meme, remade 7, if you will. But hey, we'll see. Who knows what it's going to be like going forward? Are they going to expand on everything by 60 hours? Is every town going to be 60 hours? Not going to talk too much about that. We have a different video already from this week where we talk about the same thing. So moving on. Of course, after playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, I wanted to go back and play the OG original version. Now I'm actually doing an updated, uploading Let's Play playthrough version, whatever your preferred word is, pretty much daily, maybe 6 days a week. It's getting uploaded at 11 p.m. BST, so you can copy that over to whatever your time zone is. I have it set to no notifications, so it doesn't flood and swamp everyone and all too. But it's interesting to compare. I'm trying to keep spoilers out of it. I'm trying to keep, when I'm playing the original, I'm trying to keep the remake spoilers out of it, but I do make some comparisons, but I try not to spoiler it up, if you will, anyway, because, well, who knows. It's also interesting that it's pretty much the first, what I consider large-scale, big JRPG on the channel, so that's always nice. I've always wanted to do some Final Fantasy VII, maybe Chrono Trigger, a couple of other big games like that too. But moving on, currently playing Gears Tactics. Gears Tactics just released earlier this week, and it's pretty damn good. I'm really happy with it so far anyway. It's a great mix of Gears and XCOM style turn-based strategy games, and I can't really praise it enough. It's great if you have Game Pass, which I never endorse anyone to have. If you have the PC version of Game Pass, or the Ultimate one, which I think covers the two, well then just play it. Play it. It's really good. It's really good. If you like strategy games, it's a really good one as well. Streets of Rage 4. Streets of Rage 4 just released there yesterday. Or was it yesterday? No, 2 days ago. And I have played the crap out of that. I finished it a few times. Even did it once live on stream. And yeah, it's a good updated sequel to what is essentially an old, long forgotten series, and it's nice that it's making a comeback and done in such a good way. The music is great. I love the Streets of Rage soundtrack so much, and as much as I wanted to play them in their old retro glory, I figured it was only fitting and appropriate to play the modern updated ones, and a lot of it was remixed and modernized really well, so that's pretty good anyway. And because, strangely, this is going to be a weird one, because everyone is stuck inside for all this weird stuff and all as well, and we're looking for something different to do. Earlier this week, actually it was 2 days ago, yes it was 2 days ago, I watched a stage play from the National UK Theatre. Now, it wasn't live. They did live stream the video of it, if you will. They premiered the video, I suppose. But it was recorded prior. And it was of Frankenstein. And it had Benedict Cumberbatch as Frankenstein's monster. Now, it's about 2 hours long. Interesting. I've never seen a stage play of Frankenstein. I've seen some of the old versions of the film, obviously, too. But once you get like 20 to 30 minutes into it, when the origin scenes and all stop, it gets really good. It got really good. I mean, there was maybe like an hour and a bit, an hour and like 10, 15, 20 minutes, maybe even pretty much the whole thing, where I forgot I was watching a play. I just wasn't sitting there thinking, wow, I'm watching a play of this. It was good stuff. It was good stuff. It makes you wonder though. Some stage acting's a trip. I'm not gonna lie. But after all of this is done with the likes of Gears Tactics and Final Fantasy and all that, Final Fantasy VII OG, I can move on to Trials of Mana. So that's pretty good. I have that just sitting there in the wings, and that's ready to go whenever I want. And on top of that as well, Modern Warfare 2 Remastered, because it launched on PC on April 30th. So I'm playing through the campaign of that, of course, because, well, why would I buy it on PS4? Come on. But yeah, that's it so far. Here we are at the end of our 55th episode of our Quack experimental podcast. Anyway, I want to thank everyone for sticking with me through this particular strange one, because this one This one has been a bit of a woo lad, as they say. Anyway, of course, as always, in the comments section below, thoughts, feelings, opinions, butthurt, salt, praise, whatever it is. Feel free to leave it on down there. As always, thank you for sticking with me. Feel free to hit the appropriate button to let me know how I did on the video, and while you're at it, why not head on over and hit the subscribe button and even ring that little notification bell so you can be one of the first few people notified when we put out one of these beautiful, glorious little episodes, as we do every weekend. Until then, I'll see everyone next time, and remember, winners don't play switchboards.